class that uses it, and then that professional class makes it illegal for all other classes. And then the professional class which is using this entheogen coincidentally is also the ruling class. Well, then when the lower echelons of society have had enough of being ruled, then there are slave revolts and popular uprisings, and the priestly class that held this secret as its own source of power is probably wiped out to the last bald-headed priest, and with them dies the information. So the holding close of the information is the first step toward losing it.
Well, and I think the other aspect of that is the active suppression by the priest caste of the knowledge. They don't, and the same pattern exactly happened in Europe with all the witches, the herbs preserved by the witches, the ruling priests of the church, and in India I think something similar may have happened. The priests always want people, like Blake says, the priesthood abstracts the deities and says, we have a special relationship to this deity. And we are the ones, we're the experts, we'll intercede for you, we'll be the intermediary. You talk to the deities and they'll talk to you through us. We'll tell you what the gods say, because we have this superior connection to them, and you do what they say, and you pay us. You support us. That's the deal. And the people buy the deal, and then part of the deal consists, and then you can't take the medicine, because the medicine would make the people communicate with the god directly. That's what the peyote Indians say. The white man goes to church and talks about God, and an Indian goes to the peyote teepee and takes peyote and talks with God. So the priesthood immediately, they don't want people to have mystical experiences, whether with mushrooms, soma, herbs, datura, no matter what it is. And then they want the power and the wealth. They control the power and the wealth anymore. Finally, they said they don't need to take the mushrooms themselves either. Because actually, if they continue to take the mushroom, they would, or the psychedelic, they would have to question their own power trip. So they rather want to maintain the power trip rather than constantly question it. So they suppress it. I think the only way Soma could have been wiped out is by systematic suppression.
It's all there in Genesis. Yeah. I mean, basically the story of this struggle over access to a plant and the first prohibition. You can do anything you want, but do not eat of the fruit of this plant. And then the other
knowledge,
the tree of knowledge, and the other source is saying, you will become as him. You will know your true condition in the cosmos. Well, is it that you will know your true condition in the cosmos, or is it that you will be cast down into an unending and eternal hell unto the 1000th generation? This is essentially Nancy Reagan's position. So the issue is knowledge. The true, if you look for an archetype of the shaman in the Western pantheon, the archetype of the psychedelic user, it has to be Prometheus. It is Prometheus who steals the fire from divinity and carries illumination down to the human species.
In a fennel stalk.
And for that, must suffer the most outlandish torture and indignity ever dreamed up by the Western imagination.
I have a story.
Okay, and then we'll break. Get your mic and do your thing.
Okay, so I want to change from the image of the primordial man, the sort of primitive man of nature, who is the other half of ourselves, to the primordial man in the sense of the wizard or the genie or the excellence.
The immortal.
The immortal one in us. And in this story, his name is Khizr, who is a Muslim figure who kind of runs around on the edge of reality, rather like Elijah for the Jews. Elijah was taken up in a chariot of fire and never died. And and so he's always present, and he can come to the rabbis and sit after midnight and stand in front of their desk and teach out little pieces of scripture to them. And so Khizr comes to people in their dreams or in vision. And in the Hindu tradition, Babaji is this man. So the story starts with an ordinary man living in a small village on the frontier of Afghanistan and southern Russia there. And he's the official in charge of collecting taxes, the weights and measures. So people who come through, they go through him. And he has a perfectly nice life with a wife and a child and so on. And one night, in the middle of the night, comes to the foot of his bed this figure, Khizr Nabi. And he's dressed in an emerald green cloak with an emerald green pointed hat. And they have gold and silver stars and sickle moons embroidered upon the cloak and the hat. And he has a long pointed grey beard and piercing green eyes, and these eyebrows curl up at the edge. And he says to the little man, meet me at the river in 3 days at sunset. And the little man is totally trembling, and he wakes up in the morning and goes to his little tax office, and he tells the big boss who's in charge of him, excuse me, but in 3 days' time I have to leave and I'm quitting the job now and I can't do anything about it. And they say, and the rumor spreads through the village immediately, he's gone mad. He's gone crazy. And his wife comes to hear of it because he doesn't have the courage to tell her himself, and, oh dear, he's gone crazy, what can we do? Perhaps we didn't feed him the right food, or whatever else he takes. But anyway, 3 days later, he's standing at sunset at the edge of the river, and he sees far upriver coming towards him this man with a great emerald green cloak and the tall hat and the pointed beard. And they meet and they acknowledge each other, and Khizr says, jump in the river. So, shall I continue?
Yes.
Oh. So he jumps in the river. Robert Bly taught us that when the storyteller stops, then you're supposed to encourage him to go on, otherwise he doesn't know it. Maybe he's boring you, you know? So, oh, good.
Tell us what happened next.
I was trying to encourage you, you know, just in the traditional way to make you know that we love your story. So he jumps in the river, and fortunately he can paddle a little bit and swim a little bit, so he's in the river and it's carrying him, and it's nearly dawn when a small fishing boat comes by and sees him and says, oh, you're nearly at the mouth of the river, it's dangerous here, and they take him up onto the boat, and they take him to shore where they have a small hut, palapa they call it, yes, and they make him help them with the nets, and they feed him, of course, from the fish that they've caught, and then they take him out with them in the early morning, and they teach him how to read the stars, to know what time of the night it is and when to set out for the fishing. And they teach him about the tides and about the seasons. And then one night he's sleeping in his little hammock in the fishing village, and who should come by but Khizr Nabi, who says, leave here before dawn, walk over those mountains, and see what happens. Shall I continue?
Yes, continue.
So he comes to a green valley over the mountains, and he sees some men harvesting and putting the wheat up on a cart and carrying it to the farmhouse and coming back for more, and he stands by the road watching them, and they call him and they say, hey, this is the harvest time, come and help us. So he helps, and he loads the hay, and then in the evening he's in the farmhouse and they sit him down at the table with all of them, and the next morning he's up for breakfast, and it's the farmer's daughter who brings him the porridge and the cereal and everything, and it's looking quite nice, and he learns about planting and about the seasons and the autumn and the springtime and how to keep the seeds. And he's quite interested in the farmer's daughter after all, and life is not so bad, and there's cream and there's honey. And then who should come in the middle of the night but Khizr, and says, without saying goodbye to these people because you like them, before the dawn comes, leave and go to that far city and become a dealer in furs and skins.
Go on.
Yes, each time he gets right up in the middle of the night and rushes off with nothing. No, they'd given him a small salary, so he had to take the money that he'd earned and go and set himself up. So he goes there and he buys some skins, and soon, because of his non-attachment and because he didn't really do this out of ambition, the gods smile on him, even though nature is indifferent. Sometimes if your mood is right, then those nymphets and other devas and goddesses who inhabit nature can actually help us and give us the illusion, I think, that nature is on our side, even if it really isn't. So he has this illusionary experience and becomes quite rich, and one of the main merchant ladies of the city takes an interest in him, and they decide that they're going to buy a house together, and then improve their investments and share their